Tiger hasn't been talking like someone closing a chapter, he's been talking like someone laying groundwork. Mentions of physical progress, careful but confident language about what his body can handle. Even subtle references to future seasons, not weeks, not months, but years ahead. That's not how farewell tours sound, that's how unfinished business sounds. And it sent a ripple through a tour that thought it knew what was coming next. So the questions start piling up fast. Is Tiger Woods quietly planning something for 2026? Is this a carefully managed comeback, a reinvention of what competing looks like at this stage of his career, or something even bigger than playing? Golf again? Because when Tiger moves, the entire ecosystem of the PGA Tour shifts with him. Schedules change, expectations change, the spotlight follows. And right now, that spotlight is getting brighter by the day. And maybe that's the biggest shock of all. This isn't just about whether Tiger can compete, it's about whether he's about to reshape the landscape of professional golf one more time without ever announcing it out loud. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that when Tiger goes quiet, something big usually comes next. To understand why this moment feels different, you have to understand why 2026 matters. The PGA Tour isn't just rolling into another season, it's heading toward a structural crossroads. Behind the scenes, schedules are being reshaped, priorities are shifting, and the tour is still recalibrating its identity in a post-fracture era. Stability is the goal, but uncertainty is everywhere. And historically, moments like this are when the biggest figures carry the most weight, especially one figure in particular. Then there's Tiger himself. By 2026, he'll be in his early 50s, carrying a body that has endured surgeries, setbacks, and comebacks that would have ended almost anyone else's career. The public assumption was simple: fewer appearances, symbolic tee times, maybe 1 or 2 emotional returns a year. Protect the legacy. Don't chase something the body won't allow. That story felt settled, comfortable, predictable. And that's exactly why what's happening now feels so unsettling. Because recent reports haven't been asking if Tiger will disappear, they've been asking what comes next. That's a subtle but important shift. Analysts and insiders aren't framing him as a ceremonial figure anymore. They're talking about timelines, about preparation windows, about whether selective competition could still be realistic. The language has changed from reflective to speculative. And when the tone around Tiger shifts like that, it usually means the internal reality has already changed. The expectations not long ago were low by design. Fans were told to be grateful for whatever they got, a major appearance here, a special event there, maybe a farewell moment everyone could agree on. Tiger is a symbol, not a threat. That narrative protected everyone, from the tour to Tiger himself. But it also quietly closed the door on ambition. And now, that door doesn't look nearly as shut as it once did. That's where the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. What people expected was a slow fade into legend. What Tiger is signaling now feels like something else entirely. Measured, controlled, but forward-looking. Not chasing the past, but refusing to be defined by it. And when you line that up with a PGA Tour searching for direction, one question starts to loom larger than all the rest. What happens if Tiger isn't done shaping the future yet? It started quietly, as these things usually do, not with a press conference or a dramatic announcement, but with sightings and subtle confirmations. Tiger Woods swinging a club again, not symbolically, not cautiously, but with intent. After a long absence defined by injury setbacks and guarded optimism, footage and reports began to surface showing real progress. Balance looked steadier. Speed looked closer to vintage than expected. For a player whose health updates are usually wrapped in caution, this felt different. And that difference raised eyebrows. Then came the equipment talk, and that's where things really escalated. Tiger has never been someone who speaks casually about distance or ball speed, especially not at this stage of his career. Yet suddenly there were claims, carefully worded but unmistakable, about gains, about efficiency, about the body responding better than anticipated. That's not nostalgia speaking, that's data-driven confidence. And for someone supposedly winding down, those are not the metrics you focus on unless you're measuring yourself against competition. Behind the scenes, the whispers grew louder. Insiders began floating timelines that stretched beyond a single season. Not promises, but possibilities. Not guarantees, but scenarios. competitive golf, selective schedules, preparation cycles that only make sense if the goal is to actually contend, not just participate. The most telling part wasn't what was said publicly, it was how seriously these predictions were being treated by people who know how Tiger operates. This wasn't fan fiction, it was informed speculation, and that's why these moments can't be dismissed as isolated events. A swing video here, a distance claim there, a carefully placed comment about readiness. On their own, they're easy to brush aside. Together they form a pattern, a direction. This doesn't look like a retired legend enjoying the game on his own terms. It looks like someone methodically testing limits, gathering information, and seeing how far the door is still open. Because Tiger has never done anything randomly, and if these moves are intentional, then the rumors aren't speculation anymore. They're signals. What's become clear over the past few weeks is that Tiger Woods doesn't need to announce anything to command attention. A single update, a short clip, a carefully chosen sentence. That's all it takes for the PGA Tour ecosystem to shift its focus. No other player, past or present, still has that kind of gravitational pull. And as the rumors around 2026 grow louder, the tour isn't just watching from a distance, it's listening closely. Inside tour leadership, even the smallest Tiger developments carry outsized importance. His schedule influences calendars. His availability affects event profiles. His involvement changes conversations about priorities, exposure, and long-term strategy. This isn't about favoritism. It's about reality. When Tiger is relevant, the tour benefits. And when he's potentially relevant again in a meaningful way, planning becomes more complicated. You don't ignore a variable this powerful, especially during a period of structural change. Then there's the commercial side, where the reaction has been immediate. Sponsors track Tiger updates like market signals. Television partners know exactly what his presence does to ratings. Social engagement spikes the moment his name trends for the right reasons. Even speculative headlines outperform confirmed results from current stars. That's not a knock on today's elite. It's a reminder of how singular Tiger's impact still is. Attention follows him instinctively, and the tour knows it. Compare that to the modern landscape. The PGA Tour has talent everywhere. Major winners, consistent champions, compelling personalities, but none of them reshape priorities overnight. None of them cause contingency planning with a single rumor. Tiger does, because his return isn't just about competition, it's about narrative, relevance, and momentum. He doesn't join the story, he becomes the story. And that's where the tension really sets in, because the tour now faces a question it didn't expect to revisit this soon. If Tiger is coming back in any form, what does that actually look like? Is he a selective contender, choosing moments carefully, a part-time competitor who still changes the balance of events, or something even more influential, a power broker shaping the future? From within, the answer isn't clear yet. But the fact that the question is being asked again tells you everything you need to know. At this point, the path ahead for Tiger Woods no longer feels singular. It feels layered. One possibility is a limited competitive return. Carefully chosen events, controlled preparation, and realistic expectations. Not a full season grind, but meaningful golf on his terms. Another path points towards selective major appearances where experience, course knowledge, and mental strength still matter more than volume. These aren't farewell gestures. They're calculated choices, and that alone changes how we view what comes next. Then there's the option that might matter most in the long run, a strategic role that goes beyond scorecards and leaderboards. Tiger has already shown he's willing to shape the tour from behind the scenes, influencing structure, direction, and stability during a turbulent era. If he chooses to combine selective competition with quiet authority, his impact could extend far beyond his own results. That wouldn't be a comeback in the traditional sense, it would be an evolution, and evolutions tend to last longer than moments. Chaos of the 2025 Ryder Cup, not from the fairways, but from afar. Cameras caught glimpses of him at home in Jupiter, quiet, reflective, a world away from the noise that consumed the tournament. It wasn't that Tiger didn't care, it was that he knew when silence spoke louder than words. And for a while, his silence became the loudest sound in golf. Everyone wondered what he was thinking. Months earlier, Woods had already shocked fans by turning down the U.S. captaincy. According to PGA Tour reports, he said he couldn't dedicate the time the role demanded. His body was still healing. His commitments with the Tour and TGL project were relentless. It was a practical decision, but fans didn't see it that way. To many, Tiger's no felt like more than scheduling. It felt symbolic. As if the greatest player of the modern age was quietly stepping back from the mess golf had made of itself. Was he protecting his legacy, or making a statement without saying a word? In truth, Tiger's relationship with the Ryder Cup has never been simple. The Express resurfaced his old words from 1999 when he'd called the event an exhibition. Back then, people saw it as arrogance, a young champion too focused on individual glory. But now, in hindsight, those comments hit differently. Maybe he wasn't dismissing the cup, maybe he was warning it. Warning what could happen when ego, spectacle, and noise replaced respect. The same noise that now defined Bethpage. Was Tiger's old prophecy finally coming true? For months, he said nothing, no statement, no tweet. Just silence, deliberate, disciplined, unnerving. Fans filled that silence with theories. Some thought he was furious, others believed he was heartbroken. But those who knew him best saw something else: composure. Tiger wasn't absent, he was waiting. Waiting for the world to quiet down enough to actually hear him. And when he finally spoke, his words didn't echo, they cut. When Tiger Woods finally broke his silence, it wasn't in front of flashing cameras or a roaring audience. It was in his quiet, deliberate way, calm voice, steady gaze, no theatrics. He spoke not to defend anyone, but to remind everyone. Golf, he said, has always been a game of respect for the course, for your opponent, and for yourself. There was no anger, no accusation, just a steady truth that cut through months of chaos. It wasn't noise that people heard that day, it was clarity. He acknowledged the tension, the crowd behavior, and the disappointment that defined Bethpage. But Tiger didn't point fingers. Instead, he turned the lens back on everyone who loves the sport. We all share responsibility, he said, to keep the game what it's always been, something honorable. For him, the problem wasn't passion, it was the loss of restraint, the surrender to impulse. He called on players, fans, and even officials to reclaim golf's dignity, a phrase that would echo across clubhouses and press rooms for weeks. In an age of noise, Tiger was asking for quiet. He praised Luke Donald's poise under pressure, a subtle nod to leadership rooted in calm, not chaos. Without naming names, Woods made his point. Greatness doesn't shout, it breathes. His tone wasn't nostalgic, it was urgent. He warned that if golf traded grace for spectacle, it would lose something far more valuable than trophies. You can't build legacy on disrespect, he said softly. The line felt less like commentary and more like creed. It was Tiger, the philosopher of discipline, returning to protect the soul of his sport. In that moment, the narrative shifted. Fans who had spent months debating the behavior at Bethpage suddenly had something higher to focus on: integrity. Woods didn't give the sport answers, he gave it a mirror. And in that reflection, golf saw not just its mistakes, but its potential to be better. Tiger hadn't just spoken his mind, he'd reminded golf of its conscience. Tiger's words rippled through the game like a soft tide turning stone. Within days, other legends followed, not to contradict him, but to echo what they'd long felt. Tom Watson, still shaken from the scenes at Bethpage, called Woods' message a breath of truth the game needed. For Watson, it was redemption, a bridge between shame and accountability. He said, "We can't change the crowd overnight, but we can change the example we set." It was a humble concession from one of golf's proudest guardians. The old guard wasn't angry anymore, they were ready to rebuild. Gary Player, whose earlier outburst branded the event the worst in the world, softened his tone after Tiger's comments. He admitted his frustration came from love for a game that once demanded decorum. "Tiger reminded us what golf means," he said, "and maybe we all needed reminding." His words carried a tone of reflection rather than rage. Player, once furious, now sounded hopeful. Even the loudest critics found calm in Tiger's honesty. Jack Nicklaus, ever the voice of legacy, added his weight to the movement. In an interview with Sports Illustrated, he reflected on Tiger's statement with admiration. "That's what leadership looks like," Nicklaus said. "Not volume vision." He proposed new standards: more authority for referees to control fan behavior, clearer codes of conduct for both spectators and players. The conversation was changing. What had begun as outrage was becoming reform. The game was beginning to listen to itself again. Together, these voices, Watson, Player, Nicklaus, formed a chorus of wisdom, anchored by Woods' calm conviction. Across social media, podcasts, and practice greens, a new phrase surfaced: protect the game. It wasn't a slogan, it was a mission. Golf's legends had turned frustration into purpose, criticism into stewardship, and as their message spread, something long forgotten began to stir the quiet pride that once defined the game. Maybe the 2025 Ryder Cup wasn't golf's fall from grace, maybe it was its wake-up call. What happened at Bethpage, with its chaos and confrontation, stripped the sport bare. But in that vulnerability, something powerful began to grow. It wasn't about blame anymore, it was about responsibility, a shared one. Tiger Woods' words didn't accuse, they awakened. They reminded fans, players, and leaders that golf's greatness was never in its noise, but in its quiet strength. Sometimes, the only way to heal a tradition is to break it open first. In the weeks that followed, a strange calm settled over the sport. You could feel it in locker rooms, in practice ranges, in the way commentators spoke with a little more care. Players started shaking hands longer, fans started cheering softer. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. The honesty of legends like Woods, Nicklaus, and Watson had become the mirror golf needed to see itself clearly again. For once, the headlines weren't about controversy or chaos, they were about reflection. The noise was fading, and in its place, respect was making a quiet return. The PGA of America began talks about new guidelines, real authority for marshals, stricter codes for crowd conduct, better mental health resources for players. These weren't punishments, they were promises. Promises that the sport would protect what made it special, its integrity. Tiger's calm conviction had done what no trophy could have restored belief. Not just in the players, but in the spirit that holds them together. Golf wasn't just recovering, it was remembering who it was. And then, in one of those quiet moments that only golf can create, the cameras caught him, Tiger Woods, walking the practice fairway at dusk. Bag over his shoulder. No fans, no applause. Just the rhythm of his steps and the wind in the trees. The sun sank behind him, the light golden, the air still. His words echoed softly, almost like prayer. For Tiger Woods, honesty isn't about judgment, it's about protecting the game he loves. And maybe that's how golf finds its way back to grace.